In this video, we are going to learn about different aspects of reproduction in animals. Animals are organisms that belong to the domain of Eukarya and the kingdom of Animalia. All animals are multicellular eukaryotic heterotrophic organisms. Animal bodies show a hierarchical level of organization. As true with all organisms, the body of animals is made up of cells. However, different cells come together to form tissues. These cells that form the tissues usually arise from the germ layers. Now, different tissues can come together to form organs, and different organs can work together as part of an organ system. Organ systems are usually assigned specific functions that will allow the organism to survive, reproduce, and grow better. There are many types of organ systems in animals. Some of them include the nervous system, which allows the animals to perceive their environment and respond to it appropriately. The musculoskeletal system, which is a combination of the muscular and the skeletal system that can allow many animals to move. The digestive system, which allows animals to obtain nutrients from food. The circulatory system, that allows animals to transport nutrients and gases to different parts of the body. The respiratory system plays a role in gas exchange and enables the intake of oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide at the same time from the body. The excretory or urinary system plays important roles in expelling soluble wastes from the animal body. The endocrine system uses hormones to regulate different physiological functions of the animal body. The integumentary system involves the outer part of the body like skin, feathers, hair, so on and so forth. The reproductive system that plays an important role in the formation of gametes and also in reproduction. The immune system that plays an important role in defense of the animal. There are other types of organ systems not listed here, but this is a good number of organ systems present in animals. The phenomenon of reproduction, which is the production of progeny, is important in order for a population to outlive its members. Thus, reproduction is the generation of new individuals from existing ones. Animals have different methods of reproduction. Some animals reproduce asexually, while others can reproduce sexually. Those that reproduce sexually can change their sex in their lifetime, while there are others where the individuals can have both male and female organs. Thus, there are different strategies that animals employ in order to reproduce. Sexual reproduction involves the creation of haploid gametes that will fuse to form a diploid zygote. The zygote then undergoes development to give rise to the appropriate multicellular animal. Thus, the progeny that is formed is genetically different from the parents because of the genetic composition of the egg and the sperm. Asexual reproduction occurs when offspring are formed without the fusion of gametes. In the case of asexual reproduction, the progeny formed are genetically identical to the parent that created it. There are different ways by which asexual reproduction occurs in animals. One such way is budding. In this case, if we look at the example of Hydra, an outgrowth or a bud is formed in an organism, and the bud grows. And as it grows, it ultimately will detach from the parent organism to form its own free living animal. And thus, budding is the formation of new individuals that arise from the outgrowths of existing ones. Fission is another strategy employed for asexual reproduction. And in this case, the parent separates into two or more individuals that are about the same size. Corals tend to show this type of asexual reproduction, and it is not a very common mode of asexual reproduction. Fragmentation is another type of asexual reproduction where the body can break into pieces, and some or all of these pieces can develop into the adult animal. In this example, we're looking at a hydra, which has split into two parts. The top part that has the tentacles is able to regenerate and form the intact organism. This is true even for the bottom part, which also is able to regenerate to form the intact organism. During fragmentation, there has to be regeneration and regrowth of the lost body parts. We're able to see fragmentation not only in some cnidarians like hydra, but also in starfish. Parthenogenesis is a type of asexual reproduction when a new individual develops from an unfertilized egg. Parthenogenesis is usually observed in some types of invertebrates. In the case of sexual reproduction, we normally will have a male and a female gamete, both of which that are haploid, that fuse to form a diploid zygote. In the case of haploid parthenogenesis, the egg that is formed goes ahead and becomes a haploid individual. The drones, which are one of the type of bees that are present in a colony, tend to be haploid individuals that develop from a haploid zygote. We can also have instances where diploid parthenogenesis occurs. In such a case, we can have a situation where an egg is formed and that egg is able to either fuse with another oocyte or it is able to replicate its chromosomes to become diploid and thus forms a diploid zygote. In either of these scenarios, there is no male gamete involved, and hence there is no fertilization involved. In another situation, we can have a female egg cell that was formed without undergoing meiosis, and hence it is diploid to begin with. This diploid egg then undergoes development to form the diploid individual. And thus we are able to see different types of parthenogenesis. Asexual reproduction provides several advantages. The animal does not have to depend on any other animal for reproduction and hence is self-sufficient when reproduction is concerned. Asexual reproduction tends to be more energy efficient as there is no need to make special types of cells like gametes. It can also occur much faster and thus the members in a population can increase at a quicker pace. Asexual reproduction is much more advantageous when there is not much change happening in an environment and thus when the environment is more stable. Many animals show sexual reproduction. Animals that are dioecious organisms are those where there are separate male and female sexes. In such organisms, they need to find a mate in order to sexually reproduce. On the other hand, there are other types of animals that are hermaphrodites or monoecious. In these animals, like the earthworm, the animal has both the male and female sex organs. Thus, they can demonstrate self-fertilization, and in this situation, they don't need a mate. This is shown in some nematodes like Caenorhabditis elegans, which is a model organism used in biological research. However, organisms like the earthworm, who are hermaphrodites, can still mate with one another to give rise to progeny. Some animals have the amazing ability to change their sex during their lifetime. Thus, they may start off as females and produce female gametes, and then switch to become males and form male gametes. There are different types of fish that are able to show this phenomenon. Sexual reproduction requires the animal to make specialized cells like gametes. It also requires animals to invest time and effort to find mates. Despite of these challenges, sexual reproduction has been favored over time because it results in genetic variation in the offspring. This genetic variation ensures that when the environmental factors change relatively rapidly, there will always be certain members in the population that can adapt and survive and thereby allow the population to be present. Asexual reproduction, on the other hand, tends to be favored when there is a more stable environment that does not change. Gamete formation is an important part of sexual reproduction. These gametes then ultimately fuse to form the zygote during sexual reproduction. In order to maintain the ploidy of the multicellular organism, which is usually diploid, the gametes must be haploid. In the case of porifera, gametes are formed from specialized cells. These specialized cells can be choanocytes that can change their properties to form gametes, or amoebocytes, which are known to be totipotent in nature. Thus, sponges do not show the presence of any reproductive organs. As animals evolved and the cnidarians formed, we're able to see the formation of reproductive organs called as gonads. These gonads are able to play important roles in the production of gametes. The male gamete is usually motile due to the presence of flagella, and in the case of dioecious animals, is released by the body. Here we are able to see a sponge, which is a monoecious organism, being able to release its sperm into the environment. This is not true for all monoecious animals, especially those that are going to demonstrate self-fertilization. On the other hand, the female gamete does not tend to move and hence is not motile, but is usually larger in structure. There are certain cases where it can be released into the environment, and there are other scenarios where the animal decides to keep the female gamete within their body. In the case of all vertebrates, including humans, gametes are formed by the reproductive system. In the case of placental mammals, the reproductive system also provides nourishment to the developing embryo in females. The reproductive system arises from a common structure. This common structure can then develop into either the male reproductive system or the female reproductive system, depending on the chromosomal composition of the individual. The common structure has bipotential gonads that can either become testes in individuals with XY chromosomes or ovaries in individuals that have XX chromosomes. There are also a set of ducts, like the Wolffian duct, which is able to develop into different reproductive structures in males, but degenerates or degrades in females. Another type of duct present in this common structure is the Mullerian duct, which degrades or degenerates in males, however persists in females to form different reproductive structures. Then we have the urogenital sinus, which develops into structures in the male like the prostate, and in the case of the female, it is able to form structures like the vagina. Thus, the male and the female reproductive system have common origins in terms of their internal sex organs as well as their external genitalia. Let us look at the main parts of the male reproductive system. These include the testes that make the male gametes or sperm, and the epididymis that allows the male gametes to mature as it stores them before they get transported. The sperm are transported through the vas deferens to the urethra, and as they travel, the seminal vesicle provides fluid to the sperm in order to form semen. The prostate provides more fluid and other types of molecules to help nourishment of the sperm in the semen. The semen that contains the sperm exits the urethra of the male reproductive system. The urethra in the males is usually longer than in females, but in males, the urine as well as the semen exit from the same opening. However, they cannot exit the system simultaneously, so either urine will flow or semen will flow from the urethra. The main parts of the female reproductive system include the ovaries, which make the female gametes. Once the gamete is formed, this egg then moves to the fallopian tube, which is the site of fertilization. The uterus is part of the female reproductive system where the developing embryo attaches and undergoes development. The cervix is the part that connects the uterus to the vagina. The vagina is the part of the female reproductive system where sperm is deposited. It is also the region through which tissues are expelled during the menstrual cycle, and it's also the passageway when childbirth occurs. Unlike males, the female reproductive system has a separate opening from the urinary tract. Thus, the vaginal opening lies between the urethra, which is where urine is expelled out of the body, and the anus, which is where solid waste is expelled out of the body. The male and female gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. If both the gametes are released outside the body before fertilization, then external fertilization occurs since the fusion is happening outside the animal body. On the other hand, if the female gamete remains in the animal's body, then internal fertilization occurs because the fertilization is happening inside the animal's body. Whether internal or external fertilization occurs, the female gamete or the egg releases chemicals that allows the male gamete to know where the egg is. There are always many male gametes that come in contact with the egg. However, only one sperm must fertilize the egg in order to form a diploid zygote. This is called as monospermy. If there is a situation when more than one sperm fertilize an egg, then that is called as polyspermy. Polyspermy is not desired or favorable because it changes the ploidy of the zygote, and hence the zygote is no longer diploid if more than one sperm fertilizes the egg. In such situation, the zygote may not be able to develop properly, and hence polyspermy is prevented by the egg. This can be done by changing the membrane potential of the egg transiently so that the sperm are no longer able to associate or fuse with the egg efficiently. Another more better way of preventing polyspermy is the formation of an external covering on the egg, which occurs due to a reaction called as the cortical granule reaction. In an egg cell, right below the cytoplasmic membrane, there are granules called as cortical granules. When we have a sperm fuse with the membrane of the egg, these cortical granules that are just underneath the plasma membrane undergo a process of exocytosis, and this results in the formation of a fertilization envelope. Here we're able to see an electron micrograph of cortical granules, and we're able to see how they are no longer present once fertilization has occurred. This is because through exocytosis, their contents are able to form a hard covering around the egg called as the fertilization envelope, which does not allow any other sperm to now fuse with the egg cell membrane. Once the zygote is formed, it can undergo mitosis and develop to form the multicellular animal. This development can occur outside the animal body or within the animal body. Based on that, animals can be oviparous, viviparous, or ovoviviparous. In oviparous animals, the development of the zygote occurs outside the animal's body. This can happen if the animal undergoes external fertilization or if the animal lays fertilized eggs outside the body. In both scenarios, the egg has all the nutrients that are needed for the developing embryo. This is usually in the form of yolk. Now, all animals that lay eggs outside are oviparous animals. On the other hand, viviparous animals are those where the development of the zygote occurs inside the body of the animal. All viviparous animals show internal fertilization. The eggs of these animals has enough nutrition for very early stages of development, but not enough to complete the development of the organism. Thus, nutrition has to be provided by maternal tissues, and this is normally done by the placenta, which is a mixture of maternal and fetal tissue. Ovoviviparous organisms are those where the development of the zygote occurs inside the animal body, and hence all ovoviviparous animals also show internal fertilization. However, unlike viviparous animals, the eggs have all the nutrition that is needed for the developing embryo, and hence the maternal tissues do not have to provide any nutrition. Since maternal tissues do not provide nutrition, in some animals like seahorse, the males can also have pouches where the eggs can undergo development before they hatch. With this, we come to the end of our talk, where we learned about asexual and sexual reproduction in animals. We saw different types of asexual reproduction and patterns of sexual reproduction. We learned about gametes and the human reproductive system. We also learned about the types of fertilization and the difference between oviparous, viviparous, and ovoviviparous animals.